Hi Garden Sessions family, this is Dr. Ten with Garden Sessions. This time I am recording from Forsyth Park, located in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm excited to show you the landscape of this beautiful area. At the heart of Forsyth Park is this lovely fountain. Interesting fun fact, this fountain was not specifically curated for this lovely park. Instead, it was ordered from a catalog back in the 1800s. Doesn't take away from its beauty though. Taking a peek at some of the landscape, it's flanked by what I believe to be some blue days and what previously had probably been a host of beautiful flowers. I'm thinking either a daisy, maybe coreopsis, that it's seen its better days. However, the blue days is still looking its very best. Quite nice. Some of the character in Savannah's landscape comes in the form of moss, specifically Spanish moss. It drapes quite a few trees out here. It's what you see swaying in the wind, hanging from this tree. Gives that tree quite a bit of movement to the eye. There's a lot of talk about how Savannah is haunted. This does potentially add to that eerie vibe, kind of ghostly. I can't say I've ever seen a landscape like this in any other area besides Savannah. An interesting feature at Forsyth Park is the Fragrant Garden. This is a garden curated for the enjoyment of those who are visually impaired. Let's go check it out. And here's the entrance for the Fragrant Garden. This looks like a variety of salvia and some torania. I like that pink and white. So in making it accessible for visually impaired, there's signage that's printed not only in written English but also in Braille. This tells us that this is a citrus lemon mire tree. Okay. There's some of the fruits up there. This looks like vinca and some angelonia behind it. The red flowering plant also looks like some salvia. Oh, look at this beautiful seating area. Get a little bit of respite from the sun and a lovely shade garden behind it. Looks like some ferns and potentially hostas, I think. There's some signage for it over here. I really appreciate when plants in a planned out space for the public are marked. It helps take some of the guesswork out of it. Signage for a Gardenia Augusta climbs hardy. It's a small, quaint garden, but there's something magical about it. There's an old classic feel to it. I like this ground cover here. It's really pretty. This is for a Vitex Agnes castus. I wonder how often this one blossoms. I have two Vitex in my residence, and they blossom a good 3 times a year at least. It's a little bit of the remnants of its flower. And down here also is some signage for a hedychium. I believe that's for this plant here. That's really pretty as well. There's some lovely roses. That's pretty. Let's see, how do we pronounce this? Clerodendron paniculatum. How did I do? Well, what is a fragrant garden without flowers emitting a beautiful scent? This rose is very, very pretty and it smells great. There are a couple more rose bushes here that are a little bit different. That one's nice as well. But I'll be honest, aside from the rose bushes, I'm not coming across other plants, flowers in this fragrant garden that actually are fragrant. Now, it could be the time of year. We're in late summer right now, so it's prime for plants that are really fragrant. It could have been early in the spring or early summer. I'm not sure, but I still appreciate that they made this garden accessible and enjoyable to those who are visually impaired. Here's a rhododendron canescens. Rhododendron canescens. And there's signage for this tree over here. Osmanthus fragrans. Okay. I've leaned in and I've taken a whiff of the Toranias. They are not fragrant, folks, but they're still pretty. Coming up to the last portion of this fragrant garden, I see some Rosmarinus officinalis. But what I recognize is some blue days, some white and pink vincas, some angelonias here. Let's see. All right, and that's it. Ironically, I am now overwhelmed with a fragrance that is wafting in the air, this fragrant garden, but it's not a flower. It's spray paint. Maintenance is here, applying some paint to the fountain that's at the center of this garden. Keeping it pretty and fragrant. Sure has been a lot of fun taking a stroll through Forsyth Park. Looking forward to doing more exploring here in Savannah, Georgia. Hi, I'm Dr. Ten from Relate Psychological Services, and this is Garden Session. Thank you so much for joining me. Earlier in this video, I toured the Fragrant Garden, and I particularly enjoyed that because I thought it was really beautiful how the curators of that garden emphasized equity in their design. That was a garden in which they ensured that both those with intact vision abilities and those with visual impairments could enjoy this garden. I don't know about you, but for me, it was a first being able to find something like that. And that's why it was particularly important for me to capture that in my video. Equity by design. Let's talk about that a little bit more. That's a powerful concept that highlights the importance of intentionally modeling behaviors that promote fairness and breaking down barriers. An opportunity to ensure that the item or service that you have available is widely available to those of a variety of different abilities, religious backgrounds, racial backgrounds, parental status, etc. This is something that doesn't just naturally happen, but we have to be active in promoting taking down the barriers that might inhibit equitable access. As a licensed psychologist, this is something that I face as a challenge on a routine basis. In fact, one of my practices of psychology occurs in a setting where I work with offenders. I work with individuals who have been accused of very bad, terrible things that violate society's laws, but yet it is my ethical responsibility to promote equitable service, no matter what their background is. And so in order to do that, I strive to embody a sense of empathy, to try to understand what might it be like to have gone through what this individual experienced leading up in their life until this alleged act that they committed. This is not about feeling sorry for the client or making excuses for them. Instead, it's about attempting to imagine that you are stepping into their shoes for that moment, imagining what it must be like to sit in their chair and to experience the emotions that they are. And this is one of the ways in which we can connect with others. And this is also not something that's exclusively for a mental health professional, but hopefully we are all practicing some form of empathy in our relationships with our coworkers, our neighbors, our spouse, certainly our children, etc. Empathy serves as a powerful instrument for effective communication and breaking down the obstacles that could stand in the way of progress and healing. There are 3 practical ways in which you can incorporate empathy into your daily life. The first is active listening, taking the time to actually hear the message that someone is giving to you when they're talking to you and telling you about their experience. That includes nonverbal cues of listening, such as nodding, leaning in, making eye contact, telling them, tell me more about that, letting them know that they have your attention. In doing so, you want to avoid interrupting and instead focus on communicating with them and responding appropriately. Number 2, practice perspective taking. That is to try to see the situation from the other's perspective. Like I mentioned, in one of my work settings, I work with offenders. And while for many that may be really hard to see how to empathize with someone accused of terrible crimes, this is something that I routinely do. And that is to imagine what might it have been like for this person to have been 10 or 11 years old in a underserved community with a parent who was absent and the other parent addicted to drugs and desperately needing to connect with some type of a parental figure. And in their community, unfortunately, that might have been a gang. And so of course, at 9, 10, or 11 years old, this person aligns with gang culture because it affords them a sense of safety, father figure of guidance and leadership, and it also affords the access to basic essentials like clothing, food, other necessary resources. Well, when this person matures and turns 18 years old, they do not magically pass through a portal in which they shed their way of living for nearly a decade. Instead, that has become a part of the lens of how they see the world. And so when I work with the individual like that, I try to not judge them for what they are accused of doing, but instead imagine what it might be like for this person to have been exposed to a lot of trauma and lack of resources, what brought them to where they are today. And that helps me to empathize and imagine what it must be like from their perspective. Number 3 is to ask open-ended questions. These are questions that aren't going to result in an answer of yes or no, but you may ask someone, so wow, how did that sit with you when that occurred or that person said that to you? You could also ask, so wow, how's the rebound from that going? Sounds like that was a lot to deal with. These type of questions invite a deeper conversation, and it also conveys your true interest in their experience. This all comes together to help you practice a sense of empathy. And when we incorporate empathy, it can empower us to extend inclusion to those who we may not ordinarily think of when we extend support towards others. So let's work together to strive to extend empathy and listening ear to those who we may not automatically consider a part of our support circle. I'm Dr. Ten, and this has been another episode of Garden Sessions. I invite you to join me again as we go into the garden to see what we can see. I also invite you to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.